Good morning, everyone. My name is Heather Evans, and I'm the Director of Marketing Communications and Foundation for Community Living Ontario. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar on a new climate for accessible vehicles, presented by Humberview Mobility, which is a proud member of the Humberview Group. They've been in business since 1962, and they have worked with a variety of community living member associations, families, people, and businesses that require wheelchair accessible vehicles and modifications. They have dedicated mobility specialists, and their staff of trained technicians also hold multiple certifications and have decades of experience working with accessible vehicles and automotive mobility equipment. They're a proud strategic partner of Community Living Ontario, and we welcome them today to present. But before we start, just a few housekeeping items to run through. All attendee microphones are muted, but we encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation through the chat feature, and these will be addressed at the end of the presentation. We will also be recording today's presentation and sharing that with you within the next day or so. Without further ado, I'd like to hand the presentation over to Dan to kick things off.
Thank you for that, Heather, and thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Dan, and I'm joined by my colleagues Ryan Bedard, Dwayne Gregorchuk, and Rob Simon, and we are a portion of the team here at Humberview Mobility. We've titled today's presentation A New Climate for Accessible Vehicles because this year, 2021, is going to be a lot of changes in the accessible vehicle industry, but we'll get into that in our presentation along with some other topics. So without further ado, I'll pass the microphone over to Rob to introduce us and give you an intro into Humberview Mobility.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Rob Simon. I've been with the Humberview Group now for 5 years. So just a bit of background on Humberview Mobility. We are new to the industry 5 years ago. The majority of us, our group, we did work for Shoppers Home Healthcare for a number of years. And then they decided to sell off their business, the automotive business, to a competitive company that we didn't want to go with, or we didn't view the way they did business as being how we did business. We knew people at the Humberview Group who and what a good company they were, so we did a presentation with them, and they decided to open up a division of the Humberview Group called Humberview Mobility. So as I said, we started that 5 years ago. There was 4 of us, and now we are up to 7, as well as we do have servicing mobility outlets across Ontario. We have access out in the Ottawa area, out to Georgetown, Ontario. So we have it up into Sudbury where Dwayne is. We have service up that way as well. The Humberview Group is a family-owned group, and they're very clientele focused, and they're putting their needs ahead of everything else, especially in our industry where our clientele is a little bit different than a traditional automotive client. So we have 20 locations as well across Ontario of car dealerships. And as I said, we do have roughly 4 servicing centers across Ontario as well for our mobility products. So typically, depending on where you are, we will have someone fairly close to you for service. Yeah, that's pretty much what I would like to say about introducing to Humberview Mobility. I'm not sure if any of the other guys have anything else to say.
I think that covered us well there, Rob. We can move into the next category anyways. So our next category here is inventory and product availability, and I'll pass the mic over to Ryan to get us started on that one.
So thank you very much for your time today. So what we kind of want to cover is a little bit about our inventory and what we have in stock. So moving into the 2021 year, we took it upon ourselves to look at the market and the changes, which Dwayne will go over shortly. and we were able to stock up on a lot of vehicles. One of the benefits of being in a large buying group like the Humberview Group is that we're able to look and assess the market. So we have a large amount of 2020 vehicles still on the ground and available for purchase immediately. Typically, we cover wheelchair accessible vans, Dodge Grand Caravans, Toyota Siennas. We also include ProMasters and the Ford Transit. So that's typically along the lines of some of the vehicles that you would be using in your setting would be the Dodge and the Toyota, as well as the large accessible vehicles for large group homes. So we still have models available on the ground 2020 because things are going to change, and we're going to get into that. So if you're still looking for something that's cost effective, a 2020 unit would be where we would look at. Now, one of the things that I found out yesterday, if your organization utilizes ProMasters, right now they are not moving forward with the 2022 model year. We just found this out yesterday. They are going to extend the 2021 production line because there is going to be a model or design change in the ProMaster. So right now, ProMasters are going to be, I know they're in high demand, they're going to be very hard to get a hold of. Now, we currently have about 8 to 10 2020s, one 2019 in stock. So we still have stock on available ProMasters, but we don't foresee them sticking around for a very long time. As well as the Ford Transits, there is a chip shortage in the manufacturer. So getting our hands on a commercially compliant Ford Transit, quite difficult. Lead times are all over the place. I know I placed an order for 5 of them in January. I got 1. So that's kind of where we're at with our inventory. Dwayne, I'll pass it over to you to kind of go over some other things in more detail.
Yeah, there lots of change in the automotive world right now. What we try to do is, like Ryan said, we anticipate and we take data from our previous clients and try to bring in the vehicles and conversions that meet the needs of most people. With saying that, it is a challenge right now because the industry is changing and all manufacturers are changing. Chrysler, Dodge, Toyota, and minivans, full-size vans, they're all in a state of some major changes right now. So when we try to accommodate the customers, we try to anticipate what they're going to need, and with saying that, have that stock readily available. So some of the real points of the industry changes are the 2021 Toyota Sienna. That is one of the most common vehicles that are being purchased right now. They've changed from a gas only to a hybrid gas accessible vehicle. It also is available now with all-wheel drive. So for consumers that are in snow belts or rough areas, that is an option that people are asking about, and we believe that's going to be a real benefit for some. So they're available in power, side entry access, and manual side entry access. And now they're coming out with a commercial. It's an ADA side entry option is also available, which confirms to the Canadian CSA D409 standards, which is the code for safety for public vehicles. They are in the process of coming into our stable, or whatever you call it, our inventory, and that is very exciting for us. One of the things of the Toyota is the cost of it is higher than the regular Toyotas, but there's benefits to that, and the benefits is the hybrid, which it covers the fuel costs, so it really reduces the operating costs of the vehicle. So when we do our testing, you probably could see 20 to 30% easy savings on your fuel cost. Like Ryan mentioned, there is some changes to the ProMaster, which is Dodge. And like we said, they're not going to do a quick change. We're going to be able to get our vehicles pretty well till November, and then they're going to switch over to the 2022s. So that is something to think about, because we really see a demand for the large vehicles with being needed for the group home setting and public transportation. The next vehicles that we're looking at also at is the workhorse of our industry. The workhorse of the industry has always been the Dodge Grand Caravan. It's a very economical vehicle with many optional conversions on it, and that is going to be changed. Dodge is going to rebrand this vehicle as a Chrysler Grand Caravan with some body style features. So it's more of the Pacifica line, I believe. But the challenge is with the increase in the design and the vehicle itself, there's going to be an increase in price. And with saying that, we anticipate that the increase could be up to $10,000. That does not include the conversion, which in comparison to a Dodge Grand Caravan was very economical for a lot of purchasers. So we're still waiting on that confirmation. And another thing we're thinking about, we have to think about, is the price of the importing or the metal costs and all the other transportation and fuel surcharges to transport the vehicles. So we're watching that very closely to try to keep the pricing down for the consumers. So Chrysler Grand Caravan, with the design changes coming about, they're going to also offer a commercial 88 side entry, and it's soon going to be available, and it will conform to all public transportation needs. So we're looking at that as to fill our inventory, to have inventory for you, and for all of you to experience that. We're going to try to have, inventory at locations strategically for if you would like to view them, we'll have them available. So like I said, Dodge Grand Caravan rebranded, $10,000 price point. So you can see that's really going to make a change for a lot of you people that are looking for vehicles. We're excited also that like Toyota will come out with an ADA, and they do have it now on a manual side entry, and we have those vehicles currently in stock. There you go.
Perfect. Well, thank you for that, Dwayne. Yeah, definitely. And like to highlight the advantages of hybrid there with the Toyota. For sure, it's the increased price point is coming, but there are going to be big increased fuel savings. So knowing there's a commercial option there to get Toyota's reliability, but the fuel savings that will be there for years to come could definitely make it a great option to look at moving forward for your organization's use. And of course, with the Chrysler Grand Caravan, we know the chassis is going to be going up $10,000, and the conversion cost will increase as well. So that's another reason with that foresight we stocked up, and we do still have a healthy inventory of current 2020 model Grand Caravans. So should you guys be anyone looking in the near future, need something, we'll have availability for a while to come. So now we will move into our next category, which is financing and leasing. And for that, I will pass it over to Rob Simon.
Hello again. So the Humberview Group, as we mentioned, is a large automotive group with in-house leasing available for both consumer and commercial. We can tailor a lease to everybody's needs within reason. we can offer leases from a minimum 12 month to a maximum month of 60 months. And then obviously we would, work on it and base on it on the individual's needs as far as kilometers go. But as I said, it is an in-house, so it's a large leasing company, so we are very flexible in that. As far as financing goes, we can offer financing again through, because we are a part of the large group, it's through TD Auto Finance. So it's they will finance both the vehicle as well as the conversion. It's a little more as far as an interest rate than a traditional manufacturer if somebody went in to buy a van, but that type of financing, they would only finance the vehicle. They wouldn't finance the conversion, where with us, we can do both. But it is less expensive than if somebody walked into a bank and asked for a traditional car loan. The interest rate that would be offered through TD is considerably less. And again, it's we have some flexibility to try and make meet everybody's individual needs and try and offer financing to make it affordable for everybody. So those are really the two options for that. But as I said, with the leasing, we can tailor it to everybody's needs. So, and that's commercial or consumer. And I think that's all I have on that for now.
Perfect. Well, thank you for that, Rob. I'll move us into our next category, which is challenges in finding an accessible vehicle. So we know for sure it can be a daunting task. For many people, it's a new task when you do come into a need for an accessible vehicle, and there's a lot to consider: side entry or rear entry. What are your needs and what's going to be the best item for you? So I'll pass this over to Dwayne to get us rolling with the challenges in finding an accessible vehicle.
Yes, in my years of being involved with this business, that is probably one of the most critical situations that people have, is looking for their van and the challenges in finding the accessible vehicle that will for sure meet their needs. And that is why with the Humberview Group, we're available for anybody to give us a call, send us an email, and we'll work with you to really help out the best we can, because we work on the vehicle that's going to meet your budget as best we can, and to help make that right decision. So with that, if you're looking at the smaller van, like a minivan, there's rear entry versus a side entry, where the rear entry, it's a basic conversion that you open the back hatch and pull out a ramp and go straight in, straight out. There's no turning, but it can limit your access to the front passenger driver's seat, of course, because there's still the OEM or the original equipment manufacturer has them there. Side entry conversions offer so much more. Some people believe in the side entry, the curb load is safer. The side door opens manually or power, and you can access the side of the van to pretty well the whole midsection. And many vehicles, especially the public, you can take the front passenger seat out if you have a client that can sit in the front. Again, rear entry is economical, and if it meets your needs, we're happy to work with you and to find that solution. So when we come up with all these options, we look at the budget you have. Are you looking for new? Are you looking for used? And of course, the used, it is they're sometimes difficult to acquire that are good used vehicles for clients. there's a couple of things you got to think of. You got to think of the kilometers on the vehicle. You got to think of how mechanically and electrical the vehicle is to make sure it's going to last you, depending on the time frame that you're looking at. The new vehicles, of course, come with full warranty from the manufacturer and the conversion company. A note to people out there is the Toyota hybrid is coming with a 10-year battery guarantee, which is quite remarkable, I think, for having the batteries 10 years warranty. Like I said, we look at that, we work with you on that, and we really work on what the customers are saying to us. Doesn't matter if it's a public application or a private application. We try to stock both new and used for your requirements out there. So it is challenging. We will keep on striving. Sometimes our inventory can be very large, and sometimes it's not so large because of the change in the manufacturers, especially the automotive manufacturers, changing their models. So right now, there's quite a few people. We have quite a few Toyotas side entries, power, that are available, and waiting for the all-wheel drives to come in, and so we hopefully will have inventory that when people do make a decision, that they can acquire their van at a reasonable time, not wait 6 months for the manufacturer to roll it off the lines. Couple other things, you look to, and you have to consider is your family size. Child, adult, children can't sit in the front, and how long you're going to keep the van for. Where will you be using your vehicle, and if you're using it daily? Access to parking. Are you in a parking garage? Or if you're in a single car driveway and you have space to unload on the side. That is something that people have challenges with after they do purchase a vehicle, and they can't access. They have to access. The person in the chair has to unload on the street and then put the vehicle in the driveway if it's a side entry, where a rear entry would accommodate that driveway and unload in the rear. How many people will the vehicle hold, and how many people do you want to travel with? The Canada Transport limits how much weight you can put in these vehicles. So especially in the minivans, we watch that very closely. If you're trying to put 7, 8 people in a wheelchair in a minivan, the chances are it's not going to be within the weight guidelines. And the biggest thing that I am concerned about, and I have been forever, is how tall is the client? On the public spec, the door opening is 56 inches. So if you have someone in a chair and they go into a minivan, if they're higher than 56 inches, they will hit their head on the edge of the top of the door frame. That is a big concern of ours because we see in the private sector with people with progressive type health issues, they might go to different mobility pieces. So they might go from a standard wheelchair to a tilt wheelchair, and sometimes you see them with headrest and elevating footrests. So if they end up with something that's large, sometimes a full-size van, if they're higher than 56 inches, sometimes they look at a larger ProMaster Transit, or they might look at a rear entry if they're lower than the 56 inches. So that is something to really take a look at, because once they purchase their vehicle, it's very difficult to acquire another vehicle. So that is something, it's very important. And I guess the last thing would be is do you need a caregiver? Does a caregiver need to sit beside you? Or do you need access to the person that's in the wheelchair when you're traveling? That is something to really take in consideration when you're looking at purchasing a vehicle. Like I said, all our people will gladly help out in any way they can with specifications, makes and models, and to come up with the right solution for the consumer. Dan?
Perfect. Thank you for that, Dwayne. So that will move us to our Q&A period now. I've already seen a couple questions come through, so we'll get started with that. The first one that we have, Dwayne, you might have actually just answered, but I might let you touch on it a little bit more. I'll read it to you here. So, do your vehicles accommodate larger wheelchairs? My concern is the height for entering the van, side entry. I'm in a power wheelchair with tilt and need to duck to prevent hitting my head when going in and out of my 2020 Caravan. I've tested other vehicles and same problem or worse. So I know you might be reiterating that there, but if you want to field that one again.
Yeah, you're on a side entry. The maximum you're going to have is a 56-inch door opening height. You mean it's very difficult. There's a couple of little things you can look at, and it gets very technical. But 56 inches is pretty well the height because of the van itself, and the conversion that's done to the vehicle has to be approved. So you're not going to see any differences from that. So we do have some very tall clients that are kind of have to be, and they're guided into the larger, higher vehicle door opening like the ProMaster or Transit.
Right on. Well, thank you for that, Dwayne. So yeah, any situation when you're dealing with height clearance issues, unfortunately with the minivans, we are restricted to that 56, 57 entryway. So, you know, if that is an issue, in entering the vehicle, unfortunately, full size is the option that has to be considered in most cases. The next question that came through, a very good question, is I have heard that agencies can only use side entry vans. Is that true? I will pass this one over to Ryan to answer.
So you asked a good question, because that's been floating around the industry and commercial industry, specifically to community living members, for a very, very long time. Now, our position on this is, if you look at the D409 code, the only vans we can use in this application are side entries. However, I know we have seen rear entries used in this application, and we're able to provide a vehicle in a rear entry, but it's not quite D409, and we can make it commercial, but it's not D409. So that's kind of the crux, and we were actually going to get into this at another webinar, so maybe we can leave the finer details to that, so we can go over some of the points and counterpoints, because there's a lot of misinformation and kind of a gray zone when it comes to what's approved for this one. And Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but we were going to, on another webinar, kind of dig into that in detail, so we can give you all points of view, where we sit and what we can do in terms of rear and side entry. But to your point, right now, compliant is the D409 side entry vehicle. We have commercial vehicles, but they are not applicable for this particular application. It's convoluted. There's a lot of misinformation and gray zone out there. But I mean, if you can wait on that one, our next webinar, I would like to dive deep into that, so we can all come together and maybe come up with a consensus, or just a different idea or a different kind of viewpoint on this.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Ryan. And yeah, definitely correct. That is a question we've been asked before quite a few times, and it is an important topic in this. So we will definitely be having a webinar coming out in the future where we'll dive deeper into it. So if you'd like, once we send that out, we'll answer the question, further on that. If you do have any other questions going forward from there, please contact us. We're happy to have the discussion, and we can go with it from there. I'll run into our next question that we have here is, are you aware of any funding to assist families in purchasing a new or used accessible vehicle? Another very good question. Rob, if you want to fill in on that one.
Sure. So as far as funding goes for personal use, depending on the age of the the person. So if it's a child under 18 years and younger, there's Easter seals is available to someone who would qualify, and they would pay a maximum of $3,000. And then there's the Ontario March of Dimes, which is available to anyone who qualifies, and they would pay a maximum of $15,000 towards the project. There are some like some smaller agencies such as like the MS Society periodically will donate. The Lions clubs, there's for children sort of in out in the Durham region, there's the Bag Wadding, the casino that they help with some funding as well. There used to be President's Choice, but unfortunately 2.5 years ago they pulled out of this, and it's really affected families quite badly. So, and no one's stepped up to the plate and since then to take their place. So we're always hopeful, but at the moment, those are about the only ones that I know of.
If I might jump in for a second, Rob, as well, if there's also Jordan's principle, if the child in question is of Indigenous or First Nations, they will, if they qualify, cover the entirety of the van and conversion. And I think, Rob, you mentioned VA for veterans. Anyone who's a veteran and is looking for accessible vehicle, they can get coverage through VA. So like Rob said, there's only very few options, but it is something that is available.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Ryan. I'll move on to our next question, which is, do you supply accessories, example, wheelchair restraints and seatbelt protectors, etc.? So I can likely field that one. We do provide accessories. We typically do them only pertaining to vehicle travel. So we can do tie downs, seat belts, things like that. As far as wheelchair accessories go that are more pertinent to the chair, those are going to be provided by an HME or a medical store or promotion, but we'll do anything that pertains to the vehicle. Typically, we will have access to and are able to provide. Next question we have here is, what is the maximum width for accessible vehicles? And I'm going to presume you're referring to the ramp width, but please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. And for that one, I'll pass that one over to Ryan. You want to field that one?
Yeah, so it depends on if we're looking at minivan or full size, but typically you're going to be looking around that 30-inch range for the ramp, in and around that range. Now it can vary slightly based on ramp style, in-floor, bifold, but you're going to be looking at that. So if we're looking at a very wide or bariatric patient, we're going to be looking at full size, but we also have to take into mind the weight capacity of said lift. So the biggest lifts that we're doing on some of our full size are 1,000-pound lifts. We would just need to know the size of the chair, because the lifts also themselves have a limitation on how wide they can go. So if we get into a very wide chair, just work with one of us and we can kind of narrow down the size and scope of the lift needed. And in the minivans, most of the lifts that you'll have also have or the ramps, excuse me, have a lifting capacity, or not lifting, or capacity of 1,000 pounds. Some have 800. So we just need to be sure on which application we're using. So basically we're looking around 30 inches or so on the ramp on a minivan, and then on a lift we can vary depending on the types of chairs being used. But typically any commercial vehicles that you'd be getting through us, whether it be full size, are going to have 1,000-pound lift capacity, and we can vary the weight and length. Some people like them very big, other people like it a bit smaller, so it's up in the air when it comes to the lifts.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Ryan. I had it clarified. It was actually door width they were asking about, although I think you still pretty well cover it with ramp width there, unless you had any further notes on that, but I think we're good. Perfect. And that looks like the end of the questions that we have here. So I'll leave it to my panelists. You guys have anything else you'd like to note? Ryan?
One thing that I failed to mention in our inventory, we take trade-in. So I know a lot of times when a vehicle is coming to end of life, what do you do with it? Do you just put it up to the general public and say, okay, here you go, try to get one of these used vans. A lot of the time they're high mileage, but to Dwayne's point earlier, we always like to have in stock a wide variety of these vehicles, because as you guys know, vehicles can go as high as in the 70 or higher thousand and all the way down to a used vehicle. So we will take your trade-in. We often get families that, like Dwayne was saying, someone has ALS. They're not around a long time. They're looking for a good quality vehicle. And if you are looking for a spot or to trade in, feel free to give us a call. We do take trade-ins, and if you're just looking to get rid of a vehicle, please give us a call.
Sorry, Dan, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I forgot to hit unmute there. Thank you for that, Heather. So yeah, thank you everyone for your time today and for joining us. Just a note, this webinar has been recorded, so it will be sent out should you like to rewatch it, or for anyone that was unable to attend, if they'd like, they will be able to go back and watch it. And of course, Ryan, Dwayne, Rob, myself, we're all always available and happy to answer any questions anyone may have. So our contact information is currently posed on the last slide here as well. So please reach out with any questions you may have, and we're always happy to chat and yeah, answer any questions that you have. So with that, I'll leave you guys to it. Thanks a lot for your time today, and we'll go from there. Have a good one.